Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Laser UK Stubby 3/8 inch drive impact sockets. My cat absolutely hates this table. For her, 5 seconds of sitting on that table is about 4 seconds too long. I have a lot of viewers coming out of England and in Europe in general, but particularly out of the UK. Figured it's about time that I started reviewing some of their house brands. Names like Laser and Sealy. Now this brand, at least they say they're distributed out of Warwickshire. So these I bought off of eBay, surprisingly enough, for $35. Shipped from the UK. Only took about 8 or 9 days, so they were pretty on the ball. One thing I was noticing on this, there's no country of origin, and I don't really understand that at all. Apparently there isn't any laws about country of origin, or they didn't apply to this, so I thought that was just a little disappointing. These are definitely seem like Taiwanese, pretty decent quality sockets here. Let's get this packaging off. This would be considered a professional set. This is the 14-piece metric set. What that really means when I say professional set is you generally get socket sets that are particular numbers of pieces. A basic set would be 7 pieces for 3/8 metric. A regular set would be a 10-piece set, say 10 through 19. A professional set would be this. It would be a 14-piece, 6 through 19. And then a master set would be 6 through 24. And then there would be an ultimate master, which would be 6 through 27. But these aren't too bad at all. They actually look like they are machined pretty well, pretty consistent across the sockets. I do like that these are traditional, and many people do like sockets that have the hex base. And I appreciate those as well, and I'll eventually get some of those. But I have seen a couple of those style of sockets that are cracked around the drive. And I kind of like the traditional look of a round base, and these are traditional impact sockets with the undercut, which basically isn't used for 3/8 for a cross pin retention ring. They do have a proper through hole. The laser etching is aligned with the holes, which I like. And these are indeed roll stamped. They don't have the name laser etched on them, so they're saving a couple bucks doing that. As far as the fluting looks pretty good. Fluted drive, not much chamfer on that one. Let's see if that just happens to be the way these are. No, they don't put a particularly lot of chamfering, or it doesn't look like much chamfering at all on the input side. Saving a couple dollars, or saving some money, I should say, cutting out that process. One thing we should do is see how they handled the roll stamping on the small ones, and that's neat. They actually carefully roll stamped right along that edge. So let's take a look at the heights. If we take this 17 millimeter against a standard 3/8 inch drive 17 impact, we can see that it is substantially shorter, quite a bit shorter, since these are all the same size. How tall are they? Get this on. Wow, can't see that with the dust. 22.6, kind of an odd height. Millimeters, I wonder if that's closer somewhere in inches. Not really, but 0.9 inches tall, or just about a little over 22.5 millimeters tall. That's not too bad at all. They feel a little bit lightweight. They seem to be pretty strong, reasonably thick walls. Although I was noticing the walls are a little bit thinner than they are on these more traditional impact sockets. And probably part of how they can get away with that is just simply the fact that you just have a shorter piece of metal, so it's much more rigid, and what you're driving is much closer to the anvil. So I got these. One is just for the shorter reach. I really do like the shorter reach. But two, I also like that they're a consistent length all the way across the board. Now, as far as absolutely the shortest 3/8 inch sockets I've seen, they don't quite do that. Here are these power-built ones, which are actually so short that when you put them on a ratchet, the anvil actually sticks up into the fluted portion, or the drive portion of the socket itself. So these are the ultimate shortwell, like 1/4 inch tall sockets. And we can see that these lasers are just a little bit taller than that. So these are about as short as you can get, and actually still have the anvil be, wow, you can't even see in there. We got a light where the anvil still has full contact. So that's the other thing I liked about it, is that these were really pretty well measured out. Now, if we do compare them to some other sockets, now, for instance, Proto's 3/8 inch impact socket sets grow, where the small sockets are shorter, and then they get larger as you go up. But here's a Proto 7mm, and then here's the 7mm laser, and let's just take a look here. Ooh, the laser is just slightly shorter than this Proto, so that certainly is pretty tight. Now this Proto, even though it's pretty heavy duty, you can see the issue where it has a really thick wall and actually a pretty steep bevel. Even though this is a more traditional design, much stronger, it obviously, if you have a slight recess where you're trying to get the socket into, these have a lot of trouble reaching. So I actually do appreciate this nice narrow undercut on these smaller sockets, so you can really use your small socket and then be able to get into a small recess with it. That's a good design. And I do like these little things, you know, ones that you're going to use all the time, such as the 10mm, just makes something like a little impact like this just that much shorter. If I can get it on there. That really is truly Stubby. This is the 12-volt extreme subcompact impact wrench, and that is just a tiny little socket on there. So when you're using tools like this, it just gives you a little bit more versatility and usability out of it. I should note a special feature of hog rings is when you put the socket on, when you're pulling it off, the little tips or the protrusion of the hog ring tends to get stuck in the holes. It makes it kind of difficult to get off. So the other reason to generally get Stubby sockets is just about delivering the work experience. I was just noticing that this 14mm looks, they are well oiled. That socket's actually particularly thick. Is how much closer it is to where you're driving. If you're using a wrench, the reason wrenches feel so solid and work so well is because you're basically driving right in line with the head of the fastener. Every bit of distance you get away from the head of the fastener means that, like in this situation, you're putting most of your force into twisting, but some of your force into actually wanting to cause the tool to roll and fall off. So the shorter the socket that you use, the more direct you're applying the force, and the less you have to worry about maybe holding the side or having kind of canter over or something like that. And that's really one of the things I found I like this the absolute most about Stubby sockets. It's just the fact that it's particularly when you have them right on the ratchet, it's just a more connected experience. Fasteners just seem to break a little bit easier, and ratchets seem to stay onto the fasteners more reliably. And I should probably answer the final question. Well, a couple questions. Here's a 14mm. Let's check sizing of a couple random ones just for the heck of it. We're looking about 14 1/4 on that. The 17.21, and that's about average. About 1/4 millimeter would be what would be the typical tolerance for sockets. So at least the sizing is definitely pretty consistent, about 1/4 millimeter between all those. And the final question is, yes, these are indeed shorter than the Capris. Now, Capri didn't have their Stubby sockets in 3/8, but that's what these are kind of were, is like just like the Capris, only just much shorter. And indeed, we can see that 3/8 Stubby sockets are indeed shorter than 1/2 inch drive Stubby sockets. So anyway, sorry for a long video, but it's the first time I've ever actually ordered tools out of the UK. And this is actually a useful set, being delivered overseas for 35 bucks and having being just fine. Not having chamfering on the squared broach isn't such a big deal. I think they made some intelligent choices and actually are putting out a pretty good product, at least for these. At obviously a pretty competitive price. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.